Good evening and welcome. Thanks so much for being here with us tonight. My name is Melissa Greenberg and I'm a member of the Jackson Heights Immigrant Solidarity Network. We planned this forum this evening because the moment feels absolutely urgent to join together to stand up against this country's current cruel and racist immigration policies that are terrorizing our communities and tearing families apart. It seems like every day we hear more about the horrific abuses and human rights violations that the U.S. government is carrying out against people coming to this country. One issue that has been particularly upsetting and alarming is the way that families and children are being detained in unthinkably large numbers and in unacceptable conditions. We also learned recently that many minors have been taken in the dead of night without warning to tent cities in Texas. It's hard to find the words to express our outrage about these inhumane acts that target the most vulnerable among us. The Jackson Heights Immigrant Solidarity Network believes that we have to be persistent and loud in our resistance to and mobilization against these acts. We need to gather together to send a message to our government and to the world that we will not sit by quietly as our government violates the rights of our fellow human beings. Unfortunately, the detainment of families and children is just one of so many abuses and violations that immigrants face now. We are grateful to have a wonderful group of speakers here tonight to talk to us about some of the most pressing issues that immigrants and immigrant activists around the country are contending with now. Before I introduce our endorsers and sponsors and speakers, I'm going to spend a few minutes telling you about what the Jackson Heights Immigrant Solidarity Network is and what we do. I'll start with who we are. We're a group of people who are committed to standing in solidarity with our immigrant neighbors. We believe that no human being is illegal. Our group formed in March 2017 out of a forum that took place at PS 69 on immigrant rights. Trump had just taken office a few months before, and at the time we were aware of escalating ICE activity and anti-immigrant sentiment that were promoted by the new administration. The group of local residents that were present at that forum realized that our neighborhood, as diverse as it is, was in need of a group based in our community that could mobilize to resist racist and xenophobic immigration policies and support our immigrant neighbors given the antagonistic political climate. We decided at that point that we would work with any group or individual in order to fight for immigrant rights, and that we would maintain an independent stance that is not aligned with any particular politician or political group. Now I'll tell you about what we do. We stand in solidarity with immigrants who are attacked, detained, separated from their families, or threatened with deportation or workplace discrimination. We communicate abuses to the public to raise awareness and solidarity for targeted immigrants. We mobilize our community to protest and advocate for immigrant rights. And we disseminate information on rights and best practices to defend and protect immigrants. We hope to continue working with community leaders, organizations, activists, and journalists to stand in solidarity with immigrants in order to work towards making New York a real sanctuary city. All right, so a special thanks to St. Mark's Episcopal Church for allowing us to use this space this evening, and also thanks to our endorsers and sponsors. I'll list them now. The Committee in Solidarity with the People of El Salvador, Jackson Heights Beautification Group, the Parent Association of PS 69, Queens Neighborhoods United, Rise and Resist, and the Socialist Alternative. So our first speaker this evening is going to be Lea Ramirez. She's a member of 1199 at the Legal Aid Society, and also a member of the Internationalist Socialist Organization.
Hi everyone, thanks for coming out on such a chilly night. I'm excited to have really great conversations with folks about immigration and everything. So again, my name's Lea Ramirez. So I am actually 1199 SEIU union member at the Legal Aid Society. I'm a paralegal. and I'm also a member of the International Socialist Organization. So I'm just going to speak to you about some of the work that I've been doing as a union member in particular, because again, it's one of those things that when we look at immigration, we also have to realize, like, immigrants are also workers as well, and they're very, like, diverse, and people don't live like single issue lives, right? So I think that's really important to take into account. So some of the work that I've been involved in as a union member has been initiatives around ICE out the courts. So we have a number of clients who've been afraid of actually appearing for court hearings, whether it be filing an order of protection against an abuser, or showing up to court for like a traffic violation, or just whatever it is. ICE has been basically outside of the courthouses. So some of the things that have been happening are public defenders and the criminal practice of illegal aid. They've actually done walkouts and protest of the ICE being in the courts. And there's been a number of rallies that have taken place. Just recently, the Democratic Socialists of America, they've been doing a lot of door knocking and gathering petitions. I think they had over 3,000 petitions signed by people demanding that ICE not be allowed on the courts. And they actually had an action where they delivered them to the Chief Justice in New York, who has the authority to be able to not allow ICE in the courts. And so one of the things that we've done, and this is through our own union workers, right? It's through like paralegals, attorneys, and I think that's really important, right? Because we recognize that we have coworkers who are also affected, right? Who are on DACA, TPS, and we also have our clients as well. And some of the other things that we've been doing have been like around just some more union stuff. There's been fights by Teamsters in order to make a sanctuary union, so that's also like resolutions have been passed. Basically that means that the union will not collaborate with ICE or like let people, just like basically like know your rights in the workplace and not working with ICE. And I also, another legal aid worker for Mobilization for Justice. She's a paralegal. She was actually able to pass a resolution in her union for DACA recipients. Basically, that means when, for example, someone's work authorization expires, that the union will work with that individual, right? Because it's not their fault that they were given temporary status and they're in limbo. So some of that is like severance, some of that is just like they'll hold their job. So there's all these number of things that as workers, as union members, that we feel that we're thinking about doing and like being able to stand in solidarity, right? That's really important. And then a case that we actually organized around, we actually worked, it's a pretty famous case if you're in New York City, if you were in New York City and you watched the news, you probably heard about it. It was the Pablo Villavicencio case. He was a pizza delivery guy that was picked up in Brooklyn at the Fort Hamilton military base, and he was there to deliver a pizza, and he used his NYC ID, right? And I know hopefully this, we can talk a little bit about this, because Pablo isn't the first person who has been detained by ICE for using the NYC ID. And the way it was actually rolled out to people was that it would be a way for immigrants, especially people who don't have status, to be able to access like library, be able to open like certain bank accounts or like certain accounts, pick up their children from school without someone knowing their status, right? And they rolled it out. So there's been some issues with that, and there's current campaigns. I know Make the Road, they've been trying to push driver's license for all. There's a number of people who've been doing that work. So I would definitely like look into that. And one of the things that we did is there's a community organization that was in the neighborhood that Pablo was picked up called Bay Ridge for Social Justice. And they're just like a local community group. They're very similar to the Jackson Heights Immigrant Solidarity Network. They do a lot of, basically to be able to, they're located in Bay Ridge, and so they just want to be able to like focus around a lot of issues that have been happening in Bay Ridge. And they end up doing a protest at the military base after Pablo was detained, and basically reached out to a lot of council members, and there was all this actions that were happening and public media that Pablo received, and throughout that process, I came to find out, along with some other union members, that the Legal Aid Society, our immigration unit, was actually representing Pablo. And so we were thinking, like, what are ways that we can actually organize around his case to, like, stop his deportation, especially, like, as union members. Like I said, Pablo was picked up at where he was doing his job, right? And also we have people who are on DACA, TPS, like, this affects our communities. And so what we did was we actually called a meeting, and we had an organizing meeting about, like, what are some ways that we can raise the case around Pablo's deportation. And he was able to get an emergency stay, and this was in the summer, so this was, like, around the whole, like, the separated children and, like, the Keep Families Together march that happened in New York. So that was also a really great opportunity to be able to talk to people about how, because right now when we're talking about families being separated, right, at the border, we also have to recognize how they're also being separated, in different ways as well, right? Of, like, people being detained in ICE detention centers, and just, like, historically how people have had to leave their home to find, like, to find jobs and work. So that was something that was a really great initiative. We were able to, like, reach out to folks. We had organizing meetings, and again, we came together as people from all different groups and trying to figure out the best way. A lot of it was just, like, doing, like, a rally. We had a rally, and then for Pablo's court case, his final hearing, we were actually able to pack the courthouse, which was really great, and there was an overflow room, and it was, like, one of those things where it's like the attention was on that judge, right, to be able to make a decision that was just. And he even said himself, I think one of the quotes was, like, about how he was there and he was just like, this doesn't make sense. Because Pablo, like, he has family here, he's married, like, a citizen wife, 2 citizen children. So again, it's one of those things where he just didn't understand, like, why ICE is focusing on detaining this man. And so he was actually able to win his case, and he's applying for his green card. He's, like, awaiting that. So I think that's a really great win, and I think it also just shows the importance of being able to organize collectively, especially around deportation cases, right? Because it seems like, and also to recognize that people, they don't have to be, like, this, like, model, like, because I think something that comes up again and again is this idea of, like, a model immigrant, and, like, they have to do all these things to be able to receive the same media attention, right? And I think it's really good to push back against that. I'm like, no, people deserve to be with their families, and they deserve to stay here. So I'm gonna just, like, wrap up. Again, that was some of the work that we've been doing, and I really encourage people to talk to people tonight and figure out ways that, as communities we can work together, whether it be around a deportation case or a campaign demanding that contracts in with ICE, whatever it may be. I think especially now, even now more than ever, I think it's really important to, like, reach out to people and figure out ideas and strategize around these issues. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Heather. I should add, I didn't mention before that we are hoping to have questions and discussion in the last half hour of our program today, so I'm being told I need to speak louder. We do hope to be able to pick up on some of the things that you brought up. Thanks again. Our next speaker will be Afar Nasher, the Executive Director of the Council on American Islamic Relations.
Good evening, and as we like to greet people within the Islamic tradition, Salam alaikum, which means greetings of peace upon you all. My name is Afar Nasher. I'm an attorney and the executive director for CAIR New York. That's CAIR. It stands for the Council on American Islamic Relations. We're the New York chapter of a national civil rights organization. We do all kinds of civil rights and discriminatory matters, and that involves everything from hate crimes in the streets to immigration policies that are discriminatory, to religious-based bullying in schools, to work discrimination. And there's really such a wide variety. And what I was asked to speak about for 15 minutes is Islamophobia. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a very quick overview and introduction on what that actually means to us on a very realistic basis. And then I'm going to tie it into immigration because that is the focus of tonight's talk. So in respect for your time, let me check my time. So Islamophobia is often defined as a fear of an irrational fear of Muslims and Islam. And that's easy enough to understand, but I'd like to add another component to that. And that other component is that it's not just an irrational fear, not the way that it's actually realized and implemented. It is actually goes beyond that, in the sense that it's not just an irrational fear, but one that implements and is a catalyst for bigotry and discriminatory acts, right? So that's the difference. And how are we seeing Islamophobia being played out? I mentioned some of it because that is some of the work that we do. So very quick facts. When I talk about religious-based bullying based on religion, Islamophobia, generally speaking, the Department of Education nationally tells us that about 12.5% of all students are bullied for all kinds of terrible reasons, which is terrible in and of itself, right? Whether you're not wearing the right shoes, or you have glasses, or you're smart, or whatever the reason is, it's pretty horrendous. But then what we see as Muslims is that double the national average, 24% of Muslims say they are discriminated against at school or bullied specifically because of their religion. So on top of all the other reasons, they are being bullied because of their faith. What does that mean? Realistically, that means that your 11-year-old boy who is coming into school is being called a raghead, Taliban, Osama bin Laden, asked when he's bringing the next bomb into school, as if that's a joke. But it's not a joke, because think about the implications in New York City schools, for example. If a security officer hears that, or a teacher hears that, it becomes a security issue for school. And do you know what that means? That means the security officer reports it to the NYPD because the two are linked. And that means that we have young kids that are being questioned not just by school administration but by law enforcement, and it has happened without a parent present. And that means that law enforcement is now going through a 12-year-old social media without a parent present, and now we're not only fighting the legal implications of all that, but we're also wondering, number one, how about this kid that's been bullied all this time, and where's the protection that they deserve? Number two, how do we fight the potential of criminal activity for a child? And number three, how do you wipe that off of their school record when they've been suspended as such unfairly, and now you're wondering how's that kid going to get into college in a couple of years? So you see how it can get really nasty really quick. And this is just a very small example. We've got hate crimes that have led to murders, unfortunately. And, I can just go on and on about that. But I'm going to switch now. Work discrimination is also another thing. I don't know how many of you know what the percentage of Muslims are in the U.S. They always make it seem as if we're here to take over and everything is going to be some weird, complex ideology that's going to submerge all American ideals and principles. We're 3% of the population. 3%. Now look at it from a workplace discrimination facet. EEOC, not CAIR New York, EEOC, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, says that about a quarter of all discriminatory complaints are coming from Muslims. Those are the ones that are facing the biggest discrimination in the workplace. 3%, 24, 25%. Islamophobia is very real in a lot of different ways, but now I'm going to switch gears and talk about immigration because, again, that is the focus of today. Of course, the biggest policy that manifests Islamophobia has been the Muslim ban, right? So the Muslim ban is this ban of several countries, of which the majority are Muslim majority countries, with the exception of Venezuelan diplomats because, for some reason we don't like them, and North Korea, who doesn't let North Koreans come into America anyway. And we got Muslim ban 1.0, which was so blatantly discriminatory, and then 2.0 came, and then 3.0 came, and they kept working on it and polishing it and working on it and polishing it just so that it can survive the very basic of what it needs to survive under some type of scrutiny, right? And so it went all the way up to the Supreme Court, and what we have implemented today is not a judgment based on whether or not the intent of the act was discriminatory, because I think if they had really looked at that, and if the Supreme Court had been brave enough to look at that, they would have seen what everybody else sees. But they didn't. And now we have people who are literally, have families here who are citizens, law-abiding in every single way, tax-paying, who cannot bring their spouse in, who cannot bring their children in, who cannot bring their parents in. These are people that have been applying for their families to come in. Take Yemen as an example. I know that community intimately. You have some people from Yemen that have been doing everything they're supposed to do and jumping through hoops for the past 6-7 years. 6-7 years for an application to have their child come in. We have fathers and mothers who have yet to hug their children for the first time. And even in that regard, in which, and there are cases like this, those people applied, went through the extreme vetting that is already in place, and please don't let anyone fool you to make you think that we don't have enough of a vetting process. Everything possible under the moon is already a part of the process. Your DNA, your medical exams, your ID, your history, your certificates, whatever it is that needs to be done. 7-8 years of vetting. And we had people who finally had their piece of paper after all the interviews, the multiple interviews, and said, yes, you're finally going to be united with their family. And then the Muslim ban came, and instead of the appointment in which they were supposed to obtain their visas, they were put into a room like somewhat similar to this, and rather than get their visas, they were simply given a piece of paper that said, no, sorry, you're not getting it. Let's keep going with Yemen. Yemen is a country that is now under war, a war that it did not create for itself in many ways, okay? And so you have this urgency of families trying to extract their loved ones. And because it's in war, the council, the embassy, is closed. So what does that mean for anyone who is trying to apply to get into the United States anyway? That means first they have to take a dangerous journey outside of the country, catch a boat somewhere because airports are closed, go to somewhere else like Djibouti, for example, or Malaysia, and their families have to finance all of this, and they themselves have to risk their lives to get to another American consulate or embassy. And then they go through the years of the application process while their families are financing them. And at the end of the day, they have the door slammed in their face, not because they're a security threat. Yemen has never done anything to the United States. 9/11 is not attached to Yemen, or Somalia, or any of the other countries that are on the list. What I'm trying to tell you is that a lot of discrimination, whether it's based against Muslims or any other subsection of humanity, and we are all one human family, it's always implemented under the guise of security. That, and to be quite blatant, greed. This feeling of entitlement. I am a person of faith, and we are in a house of faith. Regardless of whether or not you are a person of faith, a simple conscience should tell us that that is wrong on every level. But as if that's not enough, one of the things that we are seeing linked to Islamophobia and immigration, right? We always link immigration as immigration, somebody coming in. But let's take it back and even up a notch. As if things couldn't be worse, this administration has now said that they are not content with closing the door on family members of citizens coming in. But now they're also going to investigate files of citizens who have been in this country for 20, 30 years. Have you heard of that one? They are reopening files of U.S. citizens. People who were previously vetted, people who did get interviewed, people who did submit their DNA, and they are reopening files, and it is impacting who do you think? Primarily Muslims and Latinos. These are U.S. citizens. We have cases presently before us in which a U.S. citizen's passport is revoked. They go in to renew their passport and it doesn't come back. A letter comes back instead. No due process. There was no hearing. That's not the Constitution I believed in. That's not the Constitution that I took an oath to uphold. That is not the Constitution that you all took. And so we have this collective responsibility, both individual and collectively, to speak at forums like this, to attend, to teach ourselves and to teach our neighbors, and to link the stories, because it's not unique to the Muslim community, although I can tell you for sure we're amongst the hardest hit in so many ways. But to understand that beyond anything else, it's a human story, and it impacts every single one of us. And for those of you who wish to learn more, our website, www.cair-ny.org. My sister, Kay, is here. She brought information, so you can definitely grab some from her. I'm actually traveling, but I really wanted to make it here today so that I can at least meet you, and I hope that you reach out to us, whether it's for a volunteer opportunity or to learn more. CAIR New York is an organization that's here to serve everyone, whether or not you're Muslim. And I hope you never have to use us to help you in a discriminatory matter, but if you do, understand that we are here for everyone. Faith, no faith, Islamic faith or another. And under any classification. Protected class, I should say. Thank you so much for your time and attention. This is only a very small glimpse of what it looks like day to day. Hopefully I'll have another opportunity to be here and to speak with you all and to learn from you all as well. Thank you again.
Thank you so much. It's a really important perspective, and I'm really grateful that you were here to speak to us about that tonight. I wanted to take a moment to thank our translators this evening, Anna Kushner and Rosalina Martinez, and also Make the Road New York and Jay Koo of the Queens Neighborhood United for the translation equipment that they've supplied for us. Thank you so much. And also thanks to Joe Friendly for doing our video for this evening. All right, I am going to introduce our next speaker, Ellen Whitt from the Immigrant Rights Committee, the Central Jersey Coalition Against Endless War, and also a longtime immigrant rights activist.
Thank you so much for inviting me. You can hear me okay? Yes, okay. Yes, I've been active in the fight for immigrant rights for many years, but I think the landscape for this fight is now really changing, and that presents both challenges as well as new openings for us. As you all know, following the Trump election, and especially I think after the separation of parents from their children and at the border last spring, a much wider range of people have been introduced to the immigrant detention system in this country, and they have been rightfully outraged and horrified by what the government is doing. including separating family members and holding them in jail, months without charges, months for applying for asylum, and sometimes years while they go through court hearings to establish their basis to remain in this country. And just like all human rights violations that are carried out systematically on a mass scale, mass incarceration of immigrants requires the collaboration of local levels of government and institutions to enable it to occur. The reality is, as bad as ICE is, and as much money as it has to spend, it is not able to make mass arrests and hold people on a mass scale without the assistance and the infrastructure of local governments. And for years, at least since the early 2000s on, these local governments have done that, collaborated with ICE to assist in the arrest and detention of people from their own communities. It is this collaboration that makes it possible to deport over 300,000 people every year. Now, you may ask, why would local communities collaborate with ICE? Communities which may even be overwhelmingly immigrant, such as we have where I live in New Jersey, and is true here too. Well, in the case of detention centers, it is because there is a lot of money to be made. Across the country, local jails enter into bed contracts with ICE to hold immigrant detainees while they await court hearings. In the case of New Jersey, Hudson County, which some of you know where Jersey City is, that's Hudson County, rakes in some $35 million per year, while Essex County, where Newark is, makes over $36 million per year. And Bergen County, another northern county, makes a few million more. In New Jersey, these contracts are signed by locally elected government representatives, almost all of whom are Democrats in New Jersey, who have publicly claimed to oppose Trump's policies. And by the way, nearly everyone that is held in Hudson and Bergen County jails are brought in from New York, or they are asylum seekers from the border, from Texas, Arizona, whatever. Now, these bed contracts have existed for years, decades, a long time. They are now built into local budgets. When you take your child to the local park, you have to wonder whether it was paid for by holding immigrants in detention. They are not temporary money flows, but now they are structurally part of local budgets, making local communities dependent on ICE and continued detentions. And they're growing. You can imagine in this environment. In New Jersey, these local jails now house thousands of people each year, of which the majority are ultimately deported. New Jersey recently passed bail reform, which is a good thing. It was to set up so that people can get released rather than sit in jail if you don't have the money, that you'd actually get released. So that was the bail reform was a hope of reducing mass incarceration. But instead, some of the jails are now replacing their inmates with more immigrant detainees, which are much more lucrative than your regular prison population because they get money from the federal government for it. And as the space grows, more are detained. So last fall, a new campaign did begin in New Jersey to pressure local Democratic politicians to break from ICE and end the contracts. As a result, some of you may have seen WNYC and other press extensively covered the campaign and the public meetings that were held with officials, forcing the politicians' complicity out into the open. This enabled for the first time the extent of the number of people separated from their families, not separated in Texas, which they are, of course, but here in New Jersey and New York began to be exposed. Hudson County now has 700 beds for ICE detainees. Essex County has 800. In Newark, Elizabeth has 300. And Bergen County has another 200. And there is turnover all the time. So in the course of a year, well over 5,000 people have spent time there on immigration charges. All the time. And many of these are also, as I said, they're from New York, a good portion. What has also been exposed in the process of doing this are the conditions in the jails. Just this past year, 6 people died in Hudson County Jail. I was at a meeting of the Hudson County Freeholders, which is the government body there, just last week, where several very brave recent detainees who now live in New York City, is my understanding, they came and they publicly spoke on the conditions in the Hudson County Jail and on the abuse of gay and trans immigrants in Hudson, including one who reported publicly at that meeting that he had been raped twice just over the course of last summer in that jail. At this point, the Hudson County Freeholders voted and say that they will work to phase out the contract by 2020, but they are still leaving open the possibility or their right to extend the contract if they can't find replacement funding elsewhere. Now, what is going on in New Jersey is also happening across the country. I think we have to keep that in mind. As local ICE detention contracts see the light of day, people are campaigning against them and winning in many places. Atlanta just ended theirs. Other places are Williamson County, which is actually a conservative county outside of Austin, Texas, Alexandria, Virginia, and Fairfax, Virginia, Elkhart County, Indiana, Springfield, Oregon, and several places in California have also ended their contracts. Elsewhere, people are organizing in other ways. They're organizing against the building of private detention centers. And they're in places like Wyoming and in Houston. And Philadelphia, they just shut down their data sharing contract with ICE. So I think it's important to see how we are actually part of a bigger movement which can call for the end of collaboration with ICE on every level and the release of all detainees now. Ultimately, we must win a legal protected status for immigrants. But in the meantime, we cannot stand by and allow the rationalization of massive human rights violations to continue hidden from the general public. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Julie Schwietert Collazo from Immigrant Families Together.
I want to start tonight by saying that the family separation crisis and zero tolerance are not over. I mean that quite literally, but I also mean it a little bit philosophically. So I want to tell you a little bit about what I mean. 4 weeks ago, early on a Saturday morning, my husband, who is the co-founder of Immigrant Families Together, he's in the back, he is a refugee from Cuba, received an early morning call from a foster mom in the Bronx. She was calling because a 17-year-old in her care, we'll call him Javier, was being removed. She had found out from Cayuga that he was going to be removed later that night or early the next morning and sent to a detention facility in Texas where he would see a judge, and if he did not have a sponsor, would be deported immediately. He did not have a sponsor. We had been in the process of looking for a sponsor for him. We thought we had at least until January of next year because he wasn't aging out of the system until February when he would turn 18. So we were shocked to get this phone call to say that he needed a sponsor immediately. And we rushed up to the Bronx to meet with him, to learn more about his story, and to be with this brave foster mom who was not supposed to contact us, who was not supposed to inform anybody that this child would be removed in the dark of night, exactly as you've heard on the news, put on a plane and sent to Texas to nobody knew where. He came to the United States from Guatemala as an unaccompanied minor, leaving behind his entire family. And he did not have anyone here other than a cousin who had initially said he could probably sponsor him, but later realized because he himself is undocumented, would be unable to fulfill that role, leaving Javier without anybody to potentially sponsor him. So we had fewer than 12 hours to find a sponsor. Within 2, we found a very brave and wonderful couple actually here in Queens who volunteered to be his sponsor parents, his sponsor family. And I think what the lesson for all of us is in that is the importance of showing up, which I'm going to talk about more in a few minutes. The foster mom knew to call us because 2 of the children that she cared for over the summer had been released to their biological mother, who our group, Immigrant Families Together, bonded out in early July. To date, we've raised almost $750,000 and just today bonded out our 49th person, and that's all since the end of June of this year. Melissa from the Jackson Heights Immigrant Solidarity Network said something at the beginning in her introduction that really struck me. She said that they believe in being persistent, loud, and gathered together. At Immigrant Families Together, I would say we believe the same things. We often say, show up, give without knowing how you're going to give, and lead with love. After Javier was removed, we found out a couple weeks later from the sponsor mom whom he was able to call that he was indeed taken to Tornillo, the tent city that you've read about and seen in the news. He does not have an attorney. He does not have anybody who can visit him. These are places that are deliberately put in isolated, distant areas where it becomes impossible or really, really difficult for people to go visit and to intervene, including attorneys. Immigration attorneys in particular are totally oversubscribed and tapped out. They can't afford, literally and figuratively, to get in a car and drive 2.5 hours to see one client in a tent camp, no matter how much they want to. And so I say this because I think it's really important to underscore the role that we can each play individually in actually showing up. As Ellen was saying, here in the New York and New Jersey area, we have detention facilities. There are organizations that invite volunteers to become part of their network of visitors to detainees. You can write detainees if you're not able to visit. Francisco and I actually get dozens of letters a week from women who are in detention facilities all over this country, moms who have come here from Central America and Mexico, who are desperate to see an attorney, who are desperate to be reminded that they exist, that people outside the walls of those centers know that they are alive and care about them. So what can you do besides showing up and going to these detention centers? We're actually working with a network of faith groups to host an action at Tornillo in November. So if you're interested in that, please get in touch with me. My email is writingjulie, so like writing a letter, Julie, @gmail.com. But Tornillo is actually far away, so if that is too far for you, I would say this. A couple of weeks ago, another event that Jackson Heights Immigrant Solidarity Network hosted involved Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who said that one of the best things that you can do is check in on your neighbors. And here in Queens in particular, because of our diversity, many of our neighbors need us to check in with them and to let them know that we're here for them. The other thing that you can do really concretely and tangibly is to go with a recently released parent to a court appointment. We have many people who've been bonded out through our group who we've also come into contact with after the reunification deadline that we've picked up as families that we're also assisting, who need somebody to go with them to court appointments. With all of the people who've had somebody who have gone with them to a court appointment, none of those people have been deported. Your showing up really does matter. And so I think it's just important to remind people that your presence is crucial, and you can actually make a difference in this community and in this issue at many different levels. So thank you so much for being here tonight and for caring and for continuing to be involved in this issue.
Thanks so much, Julie. Next, I wanted to introduce Alfredo Flores, who I believe just walked in a few minutes ago. So, Alfredo, if you're ready, we would love to have you come and speak now. Alfredo is a Jackson Heights immigrant who was arrested by ICE and is now pursuing citizenship.
Hola, buenas noches. Mi nombre es Alfredo Flores y muchas gracias. Fui invitado para exponer mi caso y pues la verdad ha sido un poquito muy difícil para mí estos días. Yo estaba yendo a un viaje de trabajo a Washington, Seattle. Entonces tomé un autobús y por error, bueno, no me fijé bien del boleto. Entonces tampoco el señor del autobús me dijo que íbamos a pasar frontera a Canadá. Entonces cuando llegamos por allá.
Estaba viajando. I was traveling to Seattle when the bus that I took was going to Canada. So
estábamos llegando a frontera y pues no me habían dicho nada. Entonces pues ya cuando nos acercábamos, yo estaba viendo así de lejos la frontera y digo, wow, pero ¿dónde estoy yendo? Y pues ya, la verdad me dio mucho miedo saber que iba a perder, el estar aquí en Estados Unidos, porque pues al que me detuvieran ya no tenía oportunidad, iba a ser deportado. Pero gracias a Dios, la policía de allá me regresó aquí a Estados Unidos, en Buffalo. Y pues ahí empezó mi caso, me detuvieron.
I was going through to trespass the frontier and to Canada, but I was lucky that the authorities from Canada, they sent me to return to the United States, so to keep my status as an immigrant here.
Entonces de ahí fui encarcelado como casi 25 días estuve ahí. Gracias a Dios me dieron una fianza de $10,000 y la comunidad de verdad que se portó muy bien conmigo, me ayudó bastante. Logramos reunir una cantidad fuerte para que me pudieran sacar y pues el reto ya lo puso mi familia y gracias a Dios salí con esa fianza.
I was supported for my community. We raised funds to pay my bailout. So my family also give me support. So I was free from jail and continue doing my paperwork for my upgrade my status.
Ajá. Y pues también gracias a Dios Catalina Cruz supo de nuestro caso y pues también nos apoyó bastante, nos ayudó con un abogado y todo eso, nos está ayudando ahora y pues sí, estamos en esto. Aún no sé cuándo va a ser fecha de abogado ni nada de eso, porque el abogado se está poniendo en contacto con las autoridades de Buffalo. Entonces, pues ahorita solo estoy en espera a ver qué me dicen, si voy a ser deportado o voy a luchar por mi caso.
I was also supported by Cortez.
Catalina Cruz.
Catalina Cruz, sorry. And my case is going in good situation. I'm not sure what is the result will be, but I'm very thankful to God that everything is going very well.
Pues pues la verdad también pues hemos sufrido un poquito en mi familia, la verdad, porque pues mis hijos yo creo que sí han sufrido esto como un poquito de trauma, porque mi hijo anteriormente era muy feliz, estaba muy contento, como que todo era felicidad para él, y cuando yo llegué como que él reaccionaba ya diferente, como que él tenía miedo de que yo fuera de la casa. O sea, yo salía a tirar basura a la calle y él se espantaba, decía, no, yo voy contigo. Y entonces ahora menciona mucho la policía y esto. Siempre que voy a trabajar o cualquier cosita que yo quiera hacer, entonces él se da cuenta y está muy, muy afectado, la verdad.
I'm worried because my children were affected about this situation. They are living fear that I will be arrested again. So even when I go to throw the garbage outside, they say, Daddy, I come with you, please. So every time that I ask, they hear something about the police, they are like anxious and expecting that something can happen to me. So I think this situation affected my family profoundly.
Gracias a Dios también me están ayudando, y tuve que meter a mi hijo ¿cómo se dice? A terapias. También a nosotros estamos un poquito afectados porque la verdad es es muy fuerte saber si vas a estar o no vas a estar, o si voy a perder a mi familia. También yo he sido afectado, como que me he estado sintiendo un poco mal el pecho. Unos días atrás me fui al doctor porque la verdad, emocionalmente estoy como que afectado bastante, porque pues no quisiera dejar a mis hijos, la verdad. Emocionalmente estoy un poquito deshecho con eso. Estamos luchando para ver mi caso, y gracias a Dios la comunidad se está portando muy, muy bien con nosotros, y pues espero que todo se arregle.
I am also feeling the effect of this situation. I feel anxiety, some fear, and I have to go to for help to psychologist. Yes, he went to a psychologist because he is not. He doesn't feel secure that he will continue to be here with his children. Does bother him a lot and change his mood. I think everything has changed in his family, especially his son, when he said that he never sees him happy again, like before. He's now more a little blue, something like that.
Y sí, pues como les digo, yo espero que se haga algo por mi caso. Espero se arregle todo y que todo salga bien para estar de vuelta con mi familia. La verdad que nunca me esperé esto. A mí, pues, en lo personal me gusta trabajar mucho, demostrar que soy un inmigrante, que vengo a ofrecer mi trabajo limpiamente y hacer todo lo que yo pueda para que se vea que los hispanos venimos a trabajar, venimos a mejorar nuestra comunidad en México, como sea. Y entonces, pues espero que mi caso tenga una buena respuesta, y pues la verdad que la comunidad, yo creo que sí voy a sacar un buen resultado, porque son muy, muy humanitarios aquí en esta colonia, la verdad.
I am very thankful to my community because all my neighbors are supportive to me, and I hope that everything will resolve in positively for me. So I am very thankful again. I'm very happy that they get all this support.
Sí, y pues la verdad quisiera agradecer a todos por estar aquí y por haberme invitado, y pues lo que vaya sucediendo con mi caso, yo voy comunicando para saber si me puedo quedar en este país o qué pasa. Muchas gracias por todo y por ayudarme, la verdad que sí. me han ayudado bastante. Muchísimas gracias.
We continue to be thankful to every member of this community and continue having faith that he will be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alfredo, for sharing your story, and thank you also to Rosalinda for translating for us. Next, Wendy Valverde. If you could come up and speak with us. Wendy is the wife of Alfredo and also mother to the 3 lovely children we see back there.
Bueno, primero quiero empezar agradeciendo a todos que estén esta noche apoyándonos. La verdad no soy muy buena hablando, pero estoy acá porque quiero hacerles saber a la comunidad que no solamente ustedes son un apoyo para nosotros, pero que también nosotros queremos ser un apoyo para ustedes, todos los que están de este lado tratando de apoyar a una causa. Somos un grupo que tenemos que mantenernos juntos y realmente han mostrado mucho apoyo en cuanto al caso que ha sucedido a mi familia con mi esposo. No es una situación fácil, es una situación demasiado incertante cuando hay un hogar que mantener de por medio, niños, hay un pan que llevar a la mesa. Es muy difícil no saber qué puede pasar mañana.
Hi, I'm not that great at public speaking, but I really wanted to come tonight to really appreciate everything that this community has done for me. It has been very, very difficult, especially when you have small children and you have to keep your house running no matter what's going on. It's very upsetting, but you need to keep going, and I wouldn't have been able to do that without all of you and your support. So I'm here to appreciate that, but also to tell you that we're here for you.
Entonces, quiero reiterar nuevamente las gracias. Como les decía, es una situación muy difícil no saber qué puede pasar mañana. A veces uno escucha, pero no realmente analiza que a todos nos puede pasar esto. Uno escucha la noticia y piensa que es algo lejano, que le pasa a otras personas, al vecino, y cuando te pasa a ti, te das cuenta que tu mundo puede cambiar de un día para otro. En este momento estamos, como decía mi esposo, estamos tratando de ver qué va a pasar con él. Yo de veras espero que de alguna manera podamos solucionar este caso, que él se pueda quedar. Como él decía, los niños, él sale a trabajar, los niños están preocupados. Yo llego del trabajo, lo primero que ellos hacen es preguntar por su papá. Ellos duermen con el papá, están todo el tiempo ansiosos, quieren saber dónde está el papá, dónde está papá, a qué hora llega papá. Entonces es para mí a veces como mamá es desesperante, no sé qué decirles. Es como que ellos están todo el tiempo asustados de que el papá se va a ir en la mañana y nunca más va a regresar. Antes mi hijo Eduardo veía a los policías y era como que los policías son amigos. Ahora él ve a un policía y él le dice: papá, escóndete porque te van a llevar.
So I just want to reiterate, this is such a difficult situation for us. You know, you hear about these things on the news, but you really just don't understand what it's like until you have to go through it. It seems so far off, and then it happens to you. I'm living with this constant anxiety, and my children have it, and they're just always asking, where's Papa, where's Papa? And, you know, he goes to work, and they're asking where he is, and I come home from work, and they ask, but where's Papa? And, you know, my son Eduardo, he used to see police on the street and just not think anything of them, and now he sees them and he says, Papa, you have to hide.
Y es difícil, son chiquitos, uno no tiene cómo explicarle, pero a la misma vez uno piensa, son pequeños, no saben, pero en lo que no entienden, también entienden. El otro día yo escuchaba que él hablaba con un familiar y le decía: mi papá se va a ir a México porque Trump quiere que se vaya a México. Y yo pensé que él no entendía el concepto, pero él no entiende el concepto de lo que es inmigración, él no entiende el concepto de lo que es ser ilegal o ser legal, pero entiende el concepto de lo que es que Trump quiere que mi papá se vaya lejos. Y de veras, con todo esto, yo simplemente quisiera que algún día, o espero que algún día las cosas se puedan solucionar, que realmente nuestro presidente o las leyes puedan ver que todas las personas que estamos acá, de cualquier raza, hispanos, asiáticos o cualquier raza, todos los que estamos acá, que de alguna manera entraron ilegal y se mantienen ilegal, no son criminales. Todos están acá porque todos tienen familia, todos son padres, todos son hermanos, son hijos o tienen a alguien por quien salir adelante. Todos venimos a trabajar, venimos a aportar algo a este país.
So it's difficult because you're not sure with small children what they understand or how to explain things to them, and you know they understand more than we realize, and then they don't understand some things enough. And you know, this is happening with my children, where I overheard one of them telling another relative of ours the other day, "Oh, Papa's going to Mexico soon because Trump doesn't want him here." And it just really made me stop, because he doesn't understand things about immigration or who's here legally or illegally, but he understands that Trump does not want his father here, and he wants his father in Mexico. And I'm just hoping for the day where the laws in this country change, where we have a president who understands it doesn't matter what race you are, Hispanic, Asian, whatever, we're all just here, you know, to get ahead. It doesn't matter if we came in illegally. We're just, you know, we're all somebody's father, somebody's brother, somebody's mother, somebody's sister, and we all just want what's best for our families and to work hard, and we're not criminals.
Entonces, quiero por favor pedirles a todos que, yo sé que todos tenemos a veces una vida ajetreada, para nosotros mismos a veces, sobre todo en este momento, con todo lo que está pasando, estamos tratando de mantenernos a flote, trabajamos todo el tiempo, los niños van a la escuela, nuestra vida es súper ajetreada. No quiero entrar mucho en detalles, pero en este momento, aparte de la situación legal que estamos atravesando, tenemos problemas personales, tengo a mi mamá enferma, entonces a veces no tenemos tiempo para nada, pero tratamos de darnos unos minutos para apoyar a la causa, no solamente de nosotros, pero a la causa de todos, como es una noche como hoy, por ejemplo, porque a veces cada acto pequeño, todo vale, todo cuenta. Entonces, cada persona que está esta noche acá presente es un apoyo. Y hoy somos 20, mañana seremos 30, y así sucesivamente el número irá subiendo, porque somos muchas personas que estamos defendiendo a la causa. Entonces, todos, gracias por estar acá esta noche, no por apoyarme a mí, no por apoyar a Alfredo, pero por apoyarnos a todos como seres humanos que somos.
And I know that we all have a lot going on. We all have families, we all have work, we all have many things. I mean, even in our family, besides everything that we've been going through with this case, you know, I've also had my mother who's very sick, and we've just had some personal problems, and it's really hard to find the time to get outside of that. But I just want to reiterate that every small act counts. You know, today we're all here, and maybe there are 20 of us today, maybe there will be 30 tomorrow, maybe more another day, and that all counts for so much. And I try to make that time, despite everything we have going on, to come here tonight, to be here with you, to show that, because we're all part of the human race, and we all need to support each other.
Y nuevamente quiero agradecer a todos. Hay muchas personas que están acá, y si las empiezo a nombrar una por una, se va a hacer larga la noche, pero gracias de veras a las personas que nos invitaron, a las personas que estuvieron desde el primer día con mi esposo, a las personas que siguen llamando, que siguen texteando, que están pendientes de nuestro caso. Nuevamente, gracias.
And I'd really just like to reiterate my appreciation and my thanks to all of you. I'm not going to list everyone personally or I'll be here all night, but there are so many of you who've shown interest in my case, who've sent messages, who've sent texts, who invited me here to speak tonight, and I really appreciate it so much.
Thanks very much, Wendy, and thanks to Anna for translating. Our next speaker is Phillip Jocelyn from the Committee in Solidarity with the People of El Salvador.
I'd like to thank all of you for coming out tonight and supporting these brave folks who are, facing such difficult odds in their struggle to build a life here. I came here tonight to talk not so much about, a little bit about the struggle of immigrants, but also about why do people come here? I mean, I got involved with the CISPES, the Committee in Solidarity with the People of El Salvador, because I was, when I got out of high school, I ended up joining the U.S. Air Force, and I spent 3 years in Southeast Asia, and saw firsthand what our country was doing in that part of the world. They were wrecking those countries. They were bombing, killing. In Vietnam, somewhere around 2 million people died in that war. So when I got out of the military and came back here, I met a group of Salvadorans who had been driven out of their country by a similar policy that was that this country was pursuing in their country. Our country was supporting a dictatorial regime in El Salvador that was murdering people. We had trained right-wing death squads at the School of the Americas at that time in Panama, but it soon moved up to Fort Benning, Georgia. And by the end of the war and by the end of the 1990s, and the wreckage that war created, something like 1.5 million Salvadorans had been forced to flee their country, and they came here. So they came here to survive, and this is something that we have to recognize, that our country is following a policy of militarization that is making it impossible for people to survive in their own countries. This summer, I was fortunate enough to travel through Honduras. I went on a delegation with Witness for Peace, which is another great organization that got started during the war in Central America to try to stop our country's Contra war against the Nicaraguans. I had never really been to Honduras. I had spent a lot of time going back and forth to El Salvador, both during the war and after the war. But I was curious as to, the largest number of people from Central America now are coming from Honduras, and why is that? the U.S. government supported a right-wing coup that took place in 2009 that replaced a reformist president with a dictator, which is what our country seems to appreciate most in the leadership of our allies. So this coup government has carried on for the last 9 years, and during that time, something like 12,000 students, according to the National University in Honduras, something like 12,000 students have been murdered. This is the same kind of thing that was going on in El Salvador during the 1980s that drove 1.5 million people out of their country. And now we're following the same policy in Honduras. I visited 3 different communities that are desperately trying, well, actually 4 different communities that are desperately trying to make a living off the land, to protect their water from rapacious corporate interests that are trying to steal their water. In one case, they're trying to build a dam, and people have been resisting. A number of people have been killed. The leader of that struggle, a woman named Berta Cáceres, was murdered 2 years ago. She had led the battle against that dam, and the military and the corporate interests, their hired thugs, had murdered her. So there's a continuance of this kind of policy that is driving people out of their own countries. I think we need to take a long, hard look at what our government's doing, why our government is following these kinds of murderous policies, and why every time there is any kind of movement towards building a better society in those countries, we see military action, and we're seeing it all over the world. I mean, I saw it in Southeast Asia, I saw it in Central America, we're now seeing it in Yemen. We're destroying places in order to maintain control of the resources of those areas. And it's not maintaining control for the resources for you and me, it's maintaining control for corporate resources so that they can make profit. So anyway, what can we do? Well, we've got to change our government's policy. We have got to begin to change the way we live in the world. We can see what's going on with the climate. This kind of a system is not going to be sustainable, and we're looking at not just the death of people in Central America, but the death of the planet. And so, I also work with the School of the Americas Watch, which is another group that's been sending people down to do vigils at the for many years down in Fort Benning, Georgia, which where they trained many of the death squads that that operated in Central America. In the last 2 years, we've changed our focus to do a vigil, we're still doing a small vigil at Fort Benning, but we're also now going to the border. And because that's where we're seeing this flood of people coming in. And we need to tear down those walls, and we need to change the way we deal with migrants. We need to welcome refugees, not put them into camps, put children into camps. So this November, next month, November 16th, 17th, and 18th, we're going to be taking people to the border in Nogales, Arizona, and Nogales, Sonora. On the 16th, we'll be doing a vigil at the Eloy Detention Center in Eloy, Arizona, which is close to Tucson, between Tucson and Phoenix. And then we're going down to the border itself, and we march people across the border into Mexico and hold workshops on what's going on there and call for an end to border imperialism and an end to the walls. So I hope you can join us, and thanks a lot.
Carol Scott is here from the New Sanctuary Coalition. Thanks.
Hi. Thank you very much for holding this event tonight. I think the communication and the education is really important. So I'm going to talk just a little bit about New Sanctuary Coalition. New Sanctuary Coalition has a fundamental belief that no one should be deported. And that simple truth is the basis of all of our work. We're guided by one overarching principle, which is do no harm. And that informs all of the many ways we fight with our friends, which is the term that we use for folks that we work with who are fighting deportation. That do no harm rule informs everything that we do in fighting for those cases. New Sanctuary believes that we all are sanctuary, that sanctuary is not just a place, a church. Sanctuary is something that we can create in a community and in ourselves and in gatherings. That's a little woo-woo, but you can talk to me later about it if you want. We have a number of different programs. The two biggest programs that we have that are most open to your participation, which would be great, is the accompaniment program. We are in 26 Federal Plaza and 201 Varick Street every single day of the week, accompanying friends to court hearings, to ICE check-ins, to ISAP check-ins on Elk Street, to fingerprinting, to DMV, to everywhere that this toxic environment has made it dangerous for people to go. And we welcome you to our accompaniment trainings. We have roughly 50 accompaniments a week right now, and our accompaniment group of volunteers is constantly growing, as are the folks that we work with. So please go to the website and check out the upcoming accompaniment trainings for that. Another piece of our work is the Pro Se Clinic. Many of our friends don't have lawyers and feel that because they don't have lawyers, they can't fight their case. We don't believe that that's true. We believe in empowering our friends to advocate on their own behalf, and we help them work through their case and understand all of the things that they can do without a legal attorney, without an attorney. Our hope and our goal is that all of our friends do get attorneys, because percentages are much higher for winning relief if you do have an attorney. At the same time, we believe that our friends are their own best advocates. They know what they need, they are very strong, and they lead all of our actions. We're an immigrant organized group, and we follow. Our friends lead and we follow. So the Pro Se Clinic is on Tuesday nights. You're welcome to come to 40 Washington Square South at 5:30 and check out how that works and how you can help out there. Also, if you have friends who are in deportation proceedings who could use some help and some support and some community in terms of fighting their cases individually, please do feel free to send them to our clinic. We have an open door and everybody who comes in is seen. New Sanctuary runs on a no judgment policy. We don't entertain the good immigrant, bad immigrant narrative at all. It makes everything easier. New Sanctuary believes that there are many ways to fight the system, that no one way is the only way or the right way, and that all of the different strategies work together towards success. So that means that, yes, there are some legal strategies that can be done, and that's important. At the same time, we are all, the community, are the source of the greatest power and pressure. That can take many different forms. Our accompaniment program is a very non-confrontational form of advocacy. And the way that we do it, with an eye towards the very long-term effects of every action that we take, have made it possible for us to accompany hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, helping them get bond, making sure that they come back out of the building, which is one of the biggest goals. One of the sisters here today said accompanied people have not been detained by ICE, and we also find that to be true. ICE likes to work in the dark, and when people are not alone, ICE doesn't work quite as well. So we're very happy about that. So the accompaniment program, the Pro Se Clinic, we also believe that public showing of support and energy and creative power is a piece of the fight. To that end, we recently had an action down at 26 Federal Plaza that focused on the suitcases. When a loved one is deported, many of you probably already know this, when a person is deported, loved ones get the right to pack a suitcase that can be no more than 40 pounds for them to be given when they land wherever they're landing. That is often a place they have not been in decades and decades, and they have nothing and no one when they land. That experience of having to pack a suitcase for someone that you love that is leaving you is profoundly painful and difficult, and it's a piece of the deportation weapon that is not very well known, so we wanted to bring that to light. So we had a big event down at 26 Federal Plaza with an altar and teach-ins, and out of that came our popular education series. We think that you can't abolish ICE until you understand how it's working, that knowing, as people have mentioned tonight, who benefits from this machinery. So we organized a series of popular education trainings, one around exactly that, who's benefiting from the deportation machine, and the others around the 1996 immigration laws, which went a long way towards laying the foundation for this nightmare that we have right now. We believe that education is really important. We have an upcoming event happening on October 29th. No, I'm sorry, October 29th is Ravi's First Amendment appeal oral arguments. Ravi Ragbir is our executive director, and as you may know, he is named in he's one of the plaintiffs in a First Amendment suit that is being appealed. That oral argument is happening Monday, October 29th. at the Court of Appeals Second Circuit here in Manhattan. In order to prepare folks for that and sort of get some education out there around what that case is, we're having a First Amendment teach-in on Thursday, October 25th. It's next Thursday. If you're free and you'd like to go, it'll be a really good event. It's 6 to 9 p.m. in Brooklyn. And the theme is immigrant rights and the First Amendment. It'll be followed by a Know Your Rights for Activists training and a public art project. You can see our website for more information about that and to sign up. I was asked to give just a little bit of an update about Ravi's case, and what I can say is that the oral argument, excuse me, for the First Amendment, for the First Amendment case is happening on the 29th. Ravi had a check-in scheduled for the 11th of October that ICE finally postponed on the 10th of October. So we had some very stressful nights there. But he has a future, they delayed it, so he has a future check-in coming up. But the main thing right now is the hearing. One of the other ways that we fight back is through legislation. The separation of families is absolutely still ongoing and still horrific. There are families with kids in Cayuga right now where mom is here, grandma's here, the kids are there, and still they're not united. Mom can talk to the kids for 5 minutes a day, and it's just a nightmare getting them back together. New Sanctuary Coalition called a meeting for elected officials and other groups and came up with legislation that was presented, state legislation called the SCAR Act. SCAR, S-C-A-R, stands for Separated Children Accountability Response. And the SCAR Act is basically asking that these state contracted facilities where children are being held away from their families, at the very least, have to make public accounting of how many children are there every 15 days, because kids are coming in, kids are going out, and nobody is keeping track of how many kids are there. And so they can say, we released or we reunited 500 families, but they're not being held to accountability in order to prove that. So more information about that and a petition to sign and letters for Cuomo are also on our website. The website is newsanctuarycoalition.nationbuilder.com. We're in the process of upgrading the website, so just bear with that. If you would like to get updates about Ravi's case from his defense committee, you can email his defense team at ravidefensecommittee@gmail.com and join their newsletter. They send out newsletters and information about events around Ravi in particular. But New Sanctuary works with lots and lots of people. There are over 100 people every Tuesday at our Pro Se clinic, over 300 volunteers. Like I said, the accompaniment program is really big, and we would welcome folks who want to join us in that work. Last thing I wanted to mention, on November 1st, we're having an action in Washington Square Park. It's Dia de los Muertos. And we're inviting people to bring pictures, mementos, favorite foods of people who they are separated from, loved ones they're separated from, either by death or by borders or by detention. We're building an altar, and then there'll be a procession down to Varick Street. More about that, just email me. My email is carol@newsanctuarynyc.org. Feel free to email me with any questions or more details about any of this. And thank you very much.
Thanks so much. Thank you to all of our speakers. It's been a wonderful evening.